What's up, everybody? OC Hive Mind back with another Deck Tech. It's your boy Sparky here with our resident Hive Mind Inter Super Genius Titan player, Christian.
It's about damn time.
How are you feeling about Titan right now in the current modern meta?
I'm feeling it's okay. I think a lot of players shy away, kind of shied away from this deck, um, mostly due to the popularity of Nadu. I think Nadu's just taken the format by storm, and I think Nadu just does what this deck wants to do, but faster and better. However, us, Titan connoisseurs have kind of just stayed tight to this deck, stayed true. Really, it's all about just like evaluating in the current meta and what decks and what cards need to attack. So TLDR, I think it could be better. It's a little worse due to the format that we're in right now, but we adapt.
Sure, and if and when Nadu gets banned, this becomes the go-to relatively quick combo deck of the format.
Yeah, I think Ruby Storm also kind of takes that helm at the top there. I think if Nadu gets banned, I think it'll shift a little more to again the Jeskai control. The boards and energy decks are really popular right now. I think this deck definitely has a mainstay for sure. But again, the popularity of decks like Nadu and Storm definitely bring to light some cards that hurt this deck as well.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of your interesting selections. I'm going to point at the one card that I don't want to see, which is this Emrakul the Promised End that you have in the creature package.
Yeah, I definitely I'm sneaking that in tonight. I do not recommend everybody play Emrakul in the main board, maybe in the sideboard. But here at our FNMs at the Keep, I mean, last week we had 6 control players, 1 Murktide player. So I think control players definitely kind of cower at the sight of that card being in the main deck. But hopefully not a lot of them know that until they see it.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I agree with the call for an FNM when you can kind of map out the metagame. I think that's pretty good. Let's talk about some other additions to the deck. Malevolent Rumble. We've seen this in some of the Nadu decks. We saw, I believe it was Sanctum Vol or one of the teams, the Pro Tour, were running Malevolent Rumble, which is basically they were calling it a ponder for green decks because you're going to get the mana back because it's 1 green for a sorcery. Look at the top 4 cards. You can put 1 in your hand and the rest in the graveyard.
Yes.
It also combos with the Emrakul pretty well.
Yes.
And you also get to make an Eldrazi spawn.
Yeah. So this deck really, I mean, this card specifically really came into the light with the popular, once again, Jeskai control moving forward. Again, it's a reveal top 4, and the rest are in the graveyard, which doesn't seem all that great for our deck. We don't want our cards in the graveyard. But
there are some synergies.
Yes. So shifting woodlands is what makes this deck definitely tick in this meta. Shifting Woodlands is our Delirium land that makes a copy of any permanent in our graveyard for the turn. And
so One Rings, Amulets, Dryads,
One Rings, yeah, basically what you want to be. There's one card that not a lot of people think of that you didn't mention. I think is also really good.
Urza Saga.
Urza Saga, yeah. So the cool thing about shifting woodlands and thing that have counters on them is that the counters stay on the land because it's that permanent for the turn, and then it will hold that ability. So, for example, the One Ring, my friend Calvin knows very well from our time testing this. It'll keep the burden counters on the One Ring, but I will not take the damage because shifting woodlands is only that permanent until it ends that.
Very smart.
So I won't take the damage, but it'll keep the burdens. Same thing with Urza Saga. Not a lot of people think about this, but
it'll keep the chapters.
It'll keep the chapter abilities on the card. But for example, one thing that I would like to try to do, especially in the control matchups, is try to shifting woodland an Urza Saga on my upkeep or draw step. Try to get to that second chapter. So now shifting woodlands always has the ability of pay 2, create a construct token.
That's a very interesting layer.
Yes.
In Magic terms that you can add to some of your cards, which I mean, makes it that much better.
For sure. And again, Malevolent Rumble is our main enabler for those Delirium things. So this card was a little shaky at first when it was revealed. It was a really powerful land, but we were worried about not being able to get Delirium fast enough.
And with artifacts and enchantments everywhere, a couple creatures and some lands and
Yeah.
maybe some instants,
Cards.
you have a bunch of types that you can make.
Exactly. It's very easy. Cards like Dryad and Urza Saga, which are 2 land types, really shine for Delirium for us.
Sure. Let's talk about a couple of the interesting lands that you put into this deck that has normally about 30 in them. I see Hanwar Battlements. That's your
Yep.
base land.
Correct.
We have the Vesuva, which is a classic
Yes.
for every version.
Main staple. Yep.
I've seen a lot of people move to the Mirror Pool in order to make copies of the Titan.
Yes.
Float mana in
Yeah.
between.
Mirror Pool definitely has that added tool of being able to instantly copy a creature that we have on board, mainly our Titan. This is probably the main way we get to our 2 amulet or turn 2 or turn 3 kills.
Sure.
Is being able to, with 2 amulets on board, being able to copy a Titan, because usually in the day we would have to get our bounce land plus our Teleria West to transmute for another pact. There's a lot of extra steps, and we had to pay for another pact, and it can get blown out, especially with subtlety being the main menace to this deck as possible.
Understand.
So Mirror Pool definitely gets around ways of doing that, and then of
Tell
course.
me about Oran Reef, the Vastwood.
Okay, so this card basically is kind of like, you just kind of pick it as you go, depending on what kind of play style you like. This card specifically gets shifted in our quote-unquote kill land versus Sunhome, which is the double strike land, very popular in the mainstay in the classic Titans, or Kessig Wolf Run, which is another good kill land. This card basically does the same thing, but
depending on how many amulets you have in play is how many counters you can distribute.
Essentially, and most importantly, those counters only go on the creatures that entered that turn, so you can't put it on old Grazers or old Dryads.
So, for instance, you make a Primeval Titan, right? You make a copy with the Mirror Pool. You have 2 green creatures in play. You have, like, let's say 2 amulets. They're both 8/8s.
Yes.
And then if you were to, I don't know, let's say Vesuva,
correct,
the Oran Reef,
correct,
they would be 10/10s. That's 20.
Probably the classic line, exactly what you went over. You haste both your Titans. Your first Titan will get something like Oran Reef to get the 2 counters, and also maybe a Gardens to make a 3rd amulet, so that your second Titan attack trigger can get the Vesuva. So essentially, you can attack it. You can make both your Titans 11/11s when they attack.
So you don't necessarily need this whole like Valakut combo that I know a lot of like the old versions of the deck were kind of like crutching on as like a secondary win condition.
Yes, it's a good thing you pointed out, because a lot of things that one also key thing that you might have noticed that I'm only running 1 Valakut, where a lot of decks sometimes
running 2,
play
yes.
2. So, man, I think running 2 Valakuts is a little tricky sometimes. Is getting to 6 mana for Valakut and obviously Dryad to work is actually kind of hard for our deck, because you
want a lot of mana on 1 turn, not necessarily 6
exactly
mana early.
Especially when we have lands like Saga and Gardens that that are sticking around
and
a
are
lot.
moving zones. Yeah.
Yes. So I cut my second Valakut. Again, I can. Well, we're going to talk about another land first, but like I think 1 Valakut is completely fine, and I cut it for actually my Misty that you see here.
So what's the Misty doing in that spot? I see that it can get a Hedge Maze and a couple forests. Is there anything else? Is it just like a small thinning?
Exactly.
It's just like you just want like that 1 extra card out of your deck so you have more outs?
And also that now I'm not gonna lie, there's 1 card that you might not see that's here that's new to MH3 that this card shines really well in, which is Springheart and Nantuko. But since you don't see it and we're not talking about it, really Misty is also the kind of that extra push to get those extra Valakut damages in. In that turn where you go, for example, if you have Dryad on board and you get Titans, and then you get your Valakut Hanwar, right?
Sure.
And then
you get Vesuva and then the Misty.
Yes, Vesuva.
Get 2 triggers and then fetch.
And then
untap fetch.
Exactly. So very, very neat situations, but yeah, the Misty is kind of what I'm having that in.
I'm assuming that the Cavern is your concession to the control decks that you were complaining about.
Man, Cavern, I have a love-hate relationship with Cavern in this format, because there are so many ways around Cavern, it's ridiculous.
Do you almost feel like it's a little bit of a crutch? Not saying that it is a crutch, but I feel like if you're saying subtlety is the problem, maybe Cavern's not the answer.
Subtlety, dress down, and polarity is a nuisance that gets around Cavern. So
only 50% of the time.
Only 50% of the time, yes.
That's the most you ever lost.
So,
Flip.
so I want to say that I don't think Cavern I think at its worst, Cavern is an untapped source that I can tap for mana.
Sure.
And most importantly, one of the important things about that control matchup, which whether it's Murktide or just Guy Control, winning that game one's very important for me. So I think
game two is much worse.
exactly. So having this Cavern as that extra hedge to get over those counter spells, which they'd play 4 of,
Sure.
is something that's important for me.
Okay, we talked a lot about the main deck. The one other thing I want to bring up is the Echoing Deeps. Is there a lot of cards you want to copy, or is that in case there's any LD that you're having issues?
Yeah, so Echoing Deeps, I think, is the important land to put in if you're playing Rumble, because there is that chance where you can mill over your haste land, right?
Sure.
Or your Valakut. So I think Echoing Deeps is so important.
So it gives you that additional copy
exactly.
of a lot of the other stuff that
it's basically my second Vesuva that just helps, synergize with the Rumble of having those cards in my graveyard.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Let's look at some of the sideboard cards. We have the Spelunkings. What are you normally bringing that in for?
Spelunkings is mostly for anything for Amulet Hate. So typically, what I would look for is that any of the matches where I board out my sagas,
You're bringing in the
I'm bringing in Spelunkings for sure.
That's fair. Fire Spouts for your aggressive matchups.
Yes.
The Boros Energy.
Boros
Prowess decks.
Makes sense. Yeah, Scam. If people play Scam, I like to bring in against Scam for sure.
That doesn't exist anymore.
I know. It's some
we like to pretend it doesn't exist anymore.
It's a legend. It's a myth.
We have some Ents. I'm assuming this is for your Blood Moon matchups.
Yeah,
or your Blood Moon matchups.
Ents could be for my Blood Moon matchups for sure. Another way to get quick Delirium if I need the extra creature on board. Also, a really good body, a 5/7 with reach.
Sure.
Is really good as well. There's probably one thing that I might switch in and out is the Ents for sure.
Okay. We have your Graveyard Hate package with 2 Endurance and obviously
the Bajuka bag. This is the package, right?
Yeah. This is what the format's doing. We're gonna
exactly. This is for the Flages. This is for the Ruby Storms for sure.
That makes sense. Espergorios,
correct.
Because you're really on it. And then we have the extra Besiege You and then a couple Force of Vigors.
Yeah.
I would assume this is also part of that Blood Moon package. I know that Boros Energy has been running it. I'm not sure if Mardu is going to run it. Probably can.
Force is unfortunately just a card that we need to play to adapt to this meta. You have cards. You have for example. Let's just start from the down up. Like Nadu, right? We want to be hitting Shukos
or Nantukos,
Urza Sagas, Nantukos, exactly. Sure. Nadu Storm, Ruby Storm.
You want to hit the medallion.
We want to hit the medallions really early.
That's 4.
Exactly. And then of course Boros Energy, which I think is a good matchup for me.
Unstable Amulet,
Static Prison, Unstable Amulet, Fable, Blood Moon. They're tough cards. So
that's 8 right there.
Yeah. So
not even including
Force of Vigor, I think is important. Obviously, it's great in the mirror and things like that.
Sure.
Necro Dominance is another popular card I see.
And then you got 2 black cards that kill birds. I think this is a good deck.
Yeah, we have our Nadus that killers here.
So in closing, what would you tell to somebody who wants to pick this
up? I would say. Man, I would definitely hold out for the Nadu. If you want to win, straight up, if you want to win, you play Nadu right now. But if we're in this moment, we're all bracing for the Nadu ban. I think this is a good deck to kind of pick up and play. Check out your resources like I do. Go in the Discord, aim at Discord. A lot of good people that help you out, figure out this deck and play, and just have fun with it.
And also, they should follow your sideboard guide.
So I take a lot of my information from other content creators as well. If you want access to some of my stuff, you have to join our HiveMind Discord as well. I have some write-ups in the sideboard guide
link
as
in the
well.
Description.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of other content creators I pull from. Mistaken, Ryan Donkin's a big one. Obviously, the goddamn Harvey.
Big props to Harvey.
Yes, so a lot of good content creators out there putting this deck, in good hands for sure.
Perfect. Thank you, Christian. We appreciate you guys.
Awesome.
See you in the next one.
Peace.